Today on Delta Math, we are getting into perpendicular and parallel lines, and in particular, we're looking at the slopes of those lines. This question's wanting us to find a slope that is perpendicular. You probably don't have a clue what that is right now, but it's not really that hard to do. As far as parallel lines go, parallel lines are exactly the same slope. So whatever slope this ends up being when I work this out, parallel lines would be the exact same thing. But let's start with just working this, and then we'll talk about what parallel and perpendicular is. And when I say by working this, I mean, let's put it in slope-intercept form. All right, we're going to put in slope-intercept form, which y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope. And then b is your y-intercept. So when I work this, all I have to do really is just get y by itself, and then the rest is there for me. So I got to subtract 2x from the left and the right to cancel the 2x off over here. I'm left with negative 5y is equal to negative 2x minus 4. Now remember, I put the x in front because the mx plus b form, I want it to look like this. I still don't have y by itself. I have to divide by negative 5. When I do that, I have to divide the whole right side by negative 5. So that cancels. I have y equals, and I'm going to split this up. I got negative 2 over negative 5, x minus 4 over negative 5. And I know I got to change this sign, make it a plus, and I know that I got to put these together. Neither of these fractions reduce. So at this point, I don't have to actually do any dividing. I just rewrite it without the negatives because the negatives cancel each other out. So I have 2 over 5x, and then I'll have plus 4 over 5. And again, both of those could double negatives. I had a negative here and a negative there, and I had a negative here and a negative there. So I made them positives. But this is my slope-intercept form. So my slope, which is m, is equal to 2 over 5. Now, if my question would have asked for slope parallel to that, and use these two little lines to show that, but I'm going to, so you don't think it's 11, I'm going to write the word parallel. Parallel slope would also be 2 over 5. It's the exact same thing. But now perpendicular slope, I'm just going to abbreviate that to perp. Perpendicular slope is opposite reciprocal. What that means is we're going to flip this over. That's the reciprocal part. And then we're going to change the sign. So it's positive 2 over 5. I'm going to make it negative 5 over 2. The fraction flips. It's 5 over 2 now. And I have a negative instead of a positive. That's all it is. That's my final answer on that. Perpendicular slope is negative 5 over 2. Now, it might have been an instance. Sometimes you'll have an instance where it would be, and this is completely different from that. Let's say we had 1 over 6 for our slope. Then perpendicular would be negative 6 over 1, which would equal negative 6. So just make sure you realize that if you have to flip a fraction, then when you do that, you reduce as well. That's not what we have here. I just was afraid that I would forget to tell you that. So let's look at the next example. All right, our next example, this one's asking us to find a line parallel to the equation we have for a line there. First steps first, we always got to put in y equals mx plus b form. Now there are ways to find a slope without doing that, but we haven't went over those yet. Either way, we need to practice putting in slope-intercept form, so let's do that anyway. That's all that matters, right? We just got to be able to put it into that form, and we can find slope that way. So we have x plus 2y equals 10. To get in the slope-intercept form, I just got to get the y by itself. So I'm going to subtract x on each side. I'm left with 2y is equal to negative x plus 10. Again, I put the x term first because that's what it asks for in slope-intercept form. Now I can divide by 2. when I divide by 2, I have y equals. Don't forget, when I divide by 2 over here, I do each term by 2. So negative x divided by 2 and 10 divided by 2. That's the tricky part. You can't forget that there's really a coefficient there that it just doesn't matter. You don't write it normally, but it's 1, right? So instead of negative x over 2, to put it in slope-intercept form, I'm going to make it negative 1/2 x. It's the exact same thing. It means the same thing. All right, and then I'm going to plus 10 divided by 2. I got to reduce that part now. Now the negative 1/2 x doesn't reduce, right? It stays the same because that's reduced as simple as it gets. And there's only one negative. It's not like we got to cancel out signs or anything. So I'm just going to have negative 1/2 x, and then 10 over 2 divides out to 5. Now technically, once I figured this out, I didn't have to worry about that part because it's just asking for the slope. It just wants the slope. But it's good practice to do it anyway. And there's plenty of times you're going to have to put in the slope-intercept form, so, you know, it is what it is. I'm going to have my slope for this is my m value here. See, my m means slope. This value here. It's going to be negative 1/2 for that line. So for any line parallel, it's also going to be negative 1/2. And let me move it out a little bit. I don't like my negative being just on top or bottom. I like being out beside. Means the same thing, but that's not as proper. And perpendicular is opposite reciprocal. That means I flip the fraction, so I make it 2 over 1. Instead of negative, it's positive now. And then the 2 over 1 would reduce out to 2. So this time, it asked for parallel, so that's right here. That'd be my answer. But I went ahead and showed you the perpendicular part too, just because all the math was done anyway, and it's always good to get another look at that. Really, that's all there is. There are help videos on Delta Math. If you have any questions for me, I'll be on Google Meet, just like I always am.